The teacups were still warm. The almond cookies I'd baked the night before sat untouched on the porcelain plate. It was 8 p.m., the exact time Calvin usually walked through the door. But tonight, he wouldn't. I stared at the door for longer than I care to admit, half expecting to hear the familiar sound of his key turning in the lock. But there was only silence, the kind that sinks into your bones when you know something is gone. For good. My name is Evelyn Shaw. And for 16 years, I believed I had the kind of marriage others admired. Calvin was calm, dependable, the type of man who made any room feel grounded. He never raised his voice. He was never late. Every Sunday, he brought me flowers. He wore crisp button-downs and made sure I never had to worry about bills. We didn't have children, but life flowed quiet and smooth like two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly together. So I thought. What I didn't know, what I was about to discover, was that our puzzle had missing pieces, and one of them had been locked away in a place I was never allowed to go. Calvin died on a Thursday. They said it was a heart attack. I still remember the doctor's face. Calm, rehearsed, emotionally distant. Massive myocardial infarction, he said. He went quickly. I nodded, pretending to understand. As if any of that mattered. It didn't. Not when the only person who ever truly knew you is suddenly gone. The funeral was a blur. A haze of black clothes, quiet condolences, and strangers telling me how wonderful my husband had been. I clung to Claire, my best friend from college, who kept pressing cups of water into my hands that I couldn't drink, offering food I couldn't swallow. It wasn't until my sister Rachel arrived that something shifted. Her perfume was too sweet. Her hug lasted too long. "I'm so sorry, sis," she whispered, her voice smooth, almost rehearsed. Calvin was like a brother to me. I wanted to believe her. I really did, but there was something in her eyes, and it wasn't grief. Later that evening, as she poured herself a drink in my kitchen, she said, "Hey, I know it's not the right time, but Calvin loaned me money. I was hoping to settle that now. You're taken care of." I stared at her. "What money?" I asked. She blinked, then smiled like I was being silly. "Oh, I guess he never told you." Something inside me twisted. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the house, running my hands across furniture, bookshelves, the polished floors like they could explain something. I stopped in front of our wedding photo. Suddenly, it felt like a portrait of strangers. That's when I saw them, key still sitting on the hallway table, and there it was, the one key I was never allowed to use. It looked different, older, he once told me. Years ago, it was for his garage. "There's nothing interesting in there," he'd said with a smile. "Just tools, grease. You wouldn't like it." I didn't press. I never did. That was our marriage, comfortable, easy, and full of quiet places I wasn't meant to enter. But now, I had nothing left to lose. The next morning, I drove to the garage. It was tucked away in the industrial district behind a row of rusted roofs and crumbling buildings. Not the kind of place you'd expect someone like Calvin to frequent, but he came here every Thursday, without fail, and I never once questioned it. The metal door groaned as I turned the key. For a moment, I stood frozen, afraid of what I might find. The smell hit me first: dust, oil, something faintly metallic. I reached for the light switch and stopped. It wasn't a garage. There were no tools, no boxes, no car parts. It was a shrine to a life I never knew existed. I stepped inside slowly. The flickering fluorescent lights revealed walls covered in photographs, maps, notes, newspaper clippings, hand-drawn charts. On one wall, rows of printed photos, all carefully pinned. Every one of them had Calvin in it. But not the Calvin I knew. He looked different, more relaxed. Worn jeans, t-shirts, messy hair. His face was softer, his smile unguarded. And in almost every photo, he was with a woman, younger than me by at least 10 years. Dark hair, sharp, intelligent eyes. They stood close to close. Her hand on his arm. His smile turned toward her like she was the center of his world. One photo was at the beach, another at a ski lodge, one at a candlelit dinner. Some had dates scribbled on the back: 7 years ago, 5/3/1, from just last August, 2024. That one made my stomach drop, because that day, I was home, making his favorite meal, waiting for him to come back from a client meeting. But the photo showed him, this woman, and a young man in early 30s, smiling like a family. Written faintly on the back, Isabel and Logan, August 2024, in Calvin's handwriting, by knees buckled. I reached for the metal desk to steady myself, and that's when I saw the papers. Stacks of documents, bank transfers, corporate records, letters from overseas firms, tax forms that had nothing to do with the business I knew. And then one folder, a medical report. My eyes scanned the header, Crescent Heart Institute, dated 2 months ago. Calvin's name at the top. The diagnosis, ischemic heart disease, stage 3, high risk of cardiac arrest. He knew he was dying. And instead of telling me, instead of preparing me, instead of facing me, he spent his final days with her, with them, another woman, another life, another child, because that's who the young man had to be, his son. 15 years, I stood by him. And now, I realized, the man I buried wasn't really my husband. He was a stranger who, the night before he died, looked me in the eyes, handed me a velvet box with a sapphire necklace, kissed my cheek, and said, "You're the only one for me." I staggered back toward the door, gasping for breath, my chest tight, my thoughts unraveling. What was I supposed to do with this? Who was I now? Yes, I was a widow, but of whom? And that's when I heard it. Footsteps. Soft, hesitant, like someone trying not to be heard. I spun around, heart pounding. In the open doorway stood the young man from the photo. Same dark hair, same sharp jawline, same unreadable eyes. His voice was calm when he spoke. "Evelyn Shaw." I didn't answer. Maybe I couldn't. Deep down, I think I knew you'd come. "I'm Logan Myers," he said softly as he stepped inside. "Calvin Carter was my father." And just like that, the ground vanished beneath me. I don't remember what I said first, maybe nothing at all. I just stood there, gripping the edge of the desk like it was the last solid thing in my world. Logan moved closer, slow and steady, like he knew this moment could break. I stared at him, not just looked, but really searched his face. No doubt. His eyes, Calvin's eyes, that same quiet intensity, the silence that always said more than words ever could. You're really his son," I finally whispered. Double quotes. "Yes," Logan replied, without a flicker of doubt. "And I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this." "How long have you known about me?" I asked, my voice barely more than breath. "My whole life," he said, with no apology. He didn't tell me much, just that he was married, that you didn't know about me. He'd kept our lives separate. My mom, Isabel, respected that. She never wanted to interfere. But after she passed away last year, things changed. Passed away. She was gone, too. Just like Calvin. I collapsed into the dusty chair by the desk. My legs couldn't carry the weight anymore. "Why now? Why are you here today?" Logan reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper, edges worn and yellowed. He held it out. I hesitated, then took it. "It's a draft of his will," he said. "Not official. Just something he gave me 3 weeks before he died. Said the final copy would go to you. But this was just in case." I unfolded the page. Calvin's handwriting swept across it in familiar loops, like the ones on birthday cards and old love notes. That it wasn't notarized. Just scribbled lines, dividing assets, mentioning Logan, referring to a company I'd never heard of, Mercury South Holdings, and one more note: access to remaining documents secured in office vault, code linked to personal item gifted to VI Froze. Personal item gifted to me. The necklace, the sapphire one Calvin gave me 2 nights before he died. That wasn't just a gift. It was a key. My hand went to my collarbone instinctively, but the necklace wasn't there. I'd left it at home, tucked away in its box because it felt too heavy to wear. Now it felt even heavier. "What is Mercury South Holdings?" I asked, eyes scanning the page. Logan exhaled slowly. "One of his private firms. Off the books. He used it to move money internationally. After my mom died, I started digging. Found transfers I couldn't trace. Offshore accounts in my name. I never opened, I think. He was trying to protect something. For you, for me, for both of us." My mouth went dry. "Why?" "Because he knew time was running out," Logan said softly. "And because he didn't trust the people he worked with." I looked up. "What people?" Logan's expression darkened. He never named names. Only said that if something happened to him, someone would come looking for information. For leverage. For what he left behind. I leaned back, dizzy. A second safe. A mystery company. A necklace that might unlock secrets. And a man I loved for 16 years who built a second world behind mine. You're saying this is just the beginning? I asked. Doc Logan nodded. I think he left things behind not just for us, but to keep us safe. I stood slowly, my body still unsteady, and glanced around the room one last time. It no longer felt like a shrine. It felt like a warning. I need to go home, I said. I need that necklace. Can I come with you? Logan asked. If you'll let me, I paused, then nodded. Because whether I wanted to or not, this was now our story. But I didn't go home. Not right away. I couldn't. I needed space to think, to breathe, so I called Claire. 20 minutes later, I was on her couch, clutching a warm mug of tea I couldn't drink. The sapphire necklace sat on the table like a live grenade. Claire didn't ask questions. She never did. Not until I was ready. And when I told her about the garage, the Will Logan, she didn't say, I told you so. She just whispered, I'm so sorry, and reached for my hand. But I wasn't ready to fall apart. I needed answers. I needed someone to blame. So I drove to Rachel's condo. It was one of those luxury high-rises on the North End underground parking. Keycard gates, concierge. Strange, for someone always complaining about money. That's the elevator rose. So did my anger. She opened the door barefoot, in silk pajamas, a glass of wine in one hand. Her makeup was perfect. Hair curled, like she'd been expecting someone. Well, if it isn't my grieving sister, she said with a smirk. Come to inspect the widow's inheritance. Cut the crap, Rachel, I snapped. We need to talk. I pushed past her into the living room where a framed photo caught my eye. Her and Calvin, laughing, toasting champagne. The date in the corner made my stomach drop. 5 years ago. What the hell is this? I demanded. Rachel strolled over, sipped her wine. Oh, that company holiday party. You were too tired to come, remember? Calvin insisted I go. She said it like it was nothing. Like drinking champagne with my husband while I folded laundry was normal. We always got along well, she added. I turned to face her fully. How well, exactly? Her smirk faded. I know about Isabel, I said. About Logan, the will, the garage, everything. So if there's more, say it now. She walked to her liquor cart, refilled her glass, and said quietly, Fine, you want the truth. She placed a hand on her stomach. I'm pregnant, she said. It's Calvin's. I didn't move, couldn't speak. 12 weeks, she added. I found out a week before he died. He knew, said he'd take care of everything. He even said he'd leave Isabel soon. You were still seeing him after Isabel died. Rachel shrugged. She was never meant to last. I was always the one who stayed. I felt like I was outside my body. The walls, the furniture, the hum of the fridge, everything blurred. You slept with my husband, I whispered. She gave a half shrug. Don't act surprised. You had your perfect little life. Your dinners at 8, while I worked dead-end jobs, scraping rent, listening to Mom compare us like I was some failed version of you. Then Calvin started showing up, offering help, listening. She looked at me, her eyes sharp now. You were his routine. I was his escape. The slap came before I knew I'd raised my hand. Her head snapped, her glass shattered on the floor. She didn't yell, she didn't cry, she just smiled. There's the real Vivian, she said, not the polished wife. The woman who finally sees the truth. I turned away, breathing hard. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, voice quieter now. Because you never would have believed me, she said. You always thought I was jealous, and maybe I was. But this wasn't about you. This was about me getting something for once. I shook my head. You didn't just take something. You stole everything. She stepped closer, her face unreadable. Say what you want, but that baby growing inside me, that child is your family. Whether you like it or not. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to break something, to go back. Instead, I said, I'll honor what Calvin left. Not for you, for the baby. They didn't ask for this. Rachel blinked. Her voice softened. You mean that? I don't know what I mean, I whispered. But I know this. I need to leave. I walked to the door, ignoring the broken glass beneath my feet. My fingers trembled on the handle. I didn't go home that night. Couldn't. Not to the quiet rooms and empty bed. I went back to Claire's, held the necklace so tight I thought it might burn through my palm. She didn't ask where I'd been. She just opened the door and looked at me. You need sleep, she said. But I couldn't sleep. Not with my mind collapsing in on itself. The next morning, Logan picked me up. Claire came to. She wouldn't take no for an answer. You're not walking into your husband's secret vault without backup, she said, tossing on her coat. Calvin's office was in a downtown high-rise. He always called it his satellite space. Some place to take private meetings. I'd never set foot in it, but Logan had a key card. I'm listed as Duna, he said as we passed security. The receptionist barely looked up. Calvin had built a life so compartmentalized it never needed explaining. The elevator ride felt like it lasted years. On the 14th floor, Logan led us into a glass-walled office cold, modern, and lifeless. No photos of me, no framed memories, just sleek furniture, gray walls, and the faint trace of a cologne I didn't recognize. Logan pointed to a large abstract painting hanging behind the desk. The safe's behind that, he said. I reached into my bag and pulled out the necklace. My fingers found the small clasp and twisted it counterclockwise. Click, a hidden compartment snapped open on the back of the sapphire pendant. Inside was a thin metal plate, no bigger than a SIM card, with tiny numbers etched along the edge. Logan took it gently and slid it into the keypad on the safe. A soft beep. Then, a mechanical hum. The door swung open. Inside, stacks of documents, a sleek black flash drive, a small wooden box, and a single silver key with a tag that read, Bank Safe Deposit, Federal Trust. Logan pulled out the documents: contracts, transfers, financial statements. These names, these are international banks, he said. It wasn't just hidden money, he was moving it fast and offshore. I picked up the flash drive, but didn't plug it in, not yet. Then I opened the wooden box. Inside was a ringa, simple gold band with a small diamond. My breath caught. It wasn't mine. Inside the band, an inscription. N always, not V, not me. N. For Isabel. Jesus, Claire whispered beside me. Logan looked away, his jaw clenched. He bought her a ring, I said, barely above a whisper. He was going to propose. Or maybe he already had. I couldn't move, couldn't cry, because in that cold, silent office, the office of my dead husband, I finally saw the truth I'd refused to name. He loved her. Maybe he loved me too, in his own way, but her. She had the part of him that was real, the part that smiled in photos, that laughed, that went on vacations. The rest was a performance, a polished husband, dinner at 8, roses on Sundays, and a safe full of secrets. Then Logan handed me a folded letter, my name on the front, hands shaking. I opened it. Vivian, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry, I never had the courage to tell you the truth, to say out loud what I should have said years ago. I was selfish. I built 2 lives because I couldn't let go of either, and in the end it cost me everything. I did love you. I know that may sound hollow now, maybe it always did, but I loved you the only way I knew how. I wanted you to have peace. That's why I left you the papers, the access, the truth. Use them however you want. Burn them, bury them, or expose everything. It's your choice now. Forgive me, if you can. If not, I understand. Calvin. I stared at the page until the words blurred. Then, I handed it to Claire. She read it silently, then passed it to Logan. None of us spoke, because what could we say? The man we thought we knew had shattered, and all we had left were the shards. We left the office in silence, not the kind born of peace, but the kind born from having nothing left to say. Claire drove. Logan sat beside me, and I stared out the window, watching Charleston blur into a palette of autumn gray. My dead husband had lived a life I never touched. Now, we were holding the pieces of it in our hands, and we didn't know who else was watching. That night, I lay on Claire's pull-out couch, trying to sleep. My phone rang. Unknown number. Vivian Carter. A man's voice asked. Yes, I said. Already uneasy. This is Gordon Blake. I was a business associate of your husband's. My stomach dropped. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, he said calmly, like still water. The documents from the safe, some of them involve international accounts I helped set up. I suggest we meet. I'm not meeting anyone. You will, he said, because the other people Calvin worked with, they're not as polite. They don't ask. He hung up. I stared at the ceiling, heart racing. In the morning, I told Logan. His jaw tensed. He contacted me too, he said. But there's more. He handed me a slip of paper. Last night, someone else called. Victor Crane. He claims he's the original source of the funds Calvin moved. and he said if we don't return everything by the end of the week, there will be consequences. I didn't ask what kind. I didn't need to. Logan pulled out the silver key. We still have the deposit box, he said. Whatever's inside might explain who really owns what. But do we really want to open another box? I asked, my voice trembling. What if it just makes everything worse? Claire sat beside me. Then at least you'll know, she said. Not knowing that's what's killing you. She was right, so we made a plan. First, the bank. Then, if things still didn't make sense, we'd find someone who could explain the rest. Calvin had to have left behind a fallback, a contact, someone who knew what the hell he was involved in. That's when Logan spoke. There's a name my mother mentioned once, Sedwood Holloway, Dad's old college friend. She said he was the only one who ever told Calvin the truth, even when he didn't want to hear it. Do you know where he is? I think so, Logan said. Mom kept his address in a box of emergency contacts. Savannah drove in silence. 2 hours of rain streaking down the windshield like old memories. Savannah greeted us with oak trees, damp air, and the stillness only old towns carry. Edward lived in a tall brick house, draped in ivy like something from a forgotten novel. He opened the door slowly. You're Vivian, he said, and you must be Logan. You knew we'd come. I asked. He nodded. Calvin said, if it all comes apart, they'll find you. He stepped aside. Come in. The house smelled like paper and pipe smoke. Bookshelves lined every wall. A piano sat in the corner, touched but polished. He motioned for us to sit, then returned, with a sealed envelope. He left this with me, Edward said to open it only if both of you came together. I glanced at Logan. He nodded. Inside was a short letter and a second will. This one was different. It named the child Rachel was carrying. It assigned 25% of Calvin's offshore private savings to the child, to be held in trust until their 21st birthday. I felt the blood drain from my face. He had planned for everything, even this, and in that moment, I realized we were standing in the center of a storm Calvin had built, brick by brick. Now it was up to us to survive it. I looked down at the will again. Unborn child of Rachel Carter, 25% in trust until age 21. It wasn't the money that stunned me. It was the precision. He planned this, I whispered. All of it. Why name the baby, but not Rachel? I asked. Edward answered softly. Because he trusted the child, not the mother. Logan shifted in his seat. This changes everything. Rachel can't legally touch the money. I stared at the will. And if she tries, Edward nodded toward the flash drive. Then you use that. Calvin told me what's on it, detailed records of every transfer, every partner, every crime. If they push you, you push back. Claire exhaled beside me. You have leverage. For the first time since Calvin died, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the woman who'd been lied to and left with broken pieces. I felt like the only one still holding the blueprint, and that was power. Logan leaned forward. Vivian, it's time we stop reacting. We need to make a move before Gordon or Crane does. I nodded slowly. We go to the bank. The bank. We drove back into Charleston before noon. The Federal Trust building sat tucked between a law office and a restored historic townhouse. Quiet, unremarkable. The kind of place you'd passed 100 times without noticing, until you had to. Claire stayed in the car. Text me if it gets weird, she said. And if they don't let you in, cry. No one says no to a woman crying at a bank. Logan smiled. IDIDN single quotes T. Inside, the vault manager eyed the silver key, checked my ID, and raised a brow. It's been years since anyone accessed this box, he said. It's listed under Mercury South Holdings. Corporate Shield. He led us downstairs past steel doors, thick walls, and silence that grew heavier with every step. Finally, we were alone with the box. He handed me gloves. Standard protocol. We'll give you privacy. The door clicked shut behind us. My fingers hovered over the lock. Ready? Logan asked. No, I said, but I'm doing it anyway. The key turned. The box slid out. No cash, no passports, no burner phones or stacks of untraceable bills. Just one manila folder and a single photograph. It showed Calvin, Logan, and Gordon Blake standing in front of a black SUV, arms crossed, laughing, and behind them, Victor Crane. I stared at the photo. They weren't just business partners, I said. They were a team. Logan opened the folder. Dozens of documents, signed contracts, shell company records, wire transfers, bribes, One page stood out. Crane Blackmail Insurance in bold red letters. This wasn't leverage. It was a loaded gun. Calvin kept proof, I whispered, of everything. In that moment, I understood. He hadn't left me a mess. He'd left me a weapon. And it was up to me where to aim it. We didn't go home. We went to the lawyer. Marcus Doyle, my father's estate attorney. Straightforward, discreet, drama-averse. I told him almost everything. Not about the affair. Not about Rachel. Just what mattered legally. The documents, the threats, the offshore accounts. He didn't flinch. Do you want to press charges? He asked. No, I said. I want insurance. He nodded. Then, we'll digitize everything. Hard copies, cloud storage, 3 backup locations. One here, one with you, and one with someone unconnected. I know just the person, Claire said with a grim smile. We spent hours scanning. Calvin had documented everything: names, dates, fake invoices, wire logs. It wasn't just shady business. It was an international criminal operation. And with Calvin gone, they thought the evidence was gone too. They were wrong. By sunset, Marcus had drafted a letter. I added one handwritten line at the bottom. Try me, VC. We sent it to Gordon Blake's office by courier. He called within 15 minutes. You think you're clever, he hissed. You're in over your head. No, I said, calm. You are. The next call I make is to the IRS. After that Interpol, there was silence. Then a chuckle. All right, he said. What do you want? Nothing, I said. I just want you to stop. No calls, no threats, no late-night warnings. You touch me or anyone I care about, and the whole file goes public. Every document, every signature. You don't want that kind of trouble. I already have that kind of trouble, I said. The difference is I'm not afraid of it anymore. He hung up. 2 hours later, Victor Crane called. His tone was smooth, polished, like a man who thought charm could fix anything. Vivian, he said, like we were old friends, I heard about your discoveries. I think we've gotten off on the wrong foot. There is no foot, I said. Just your signature on a dozen illegal transfers. He laughed softly. All hypothetical, of course. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, you think you can handle this? But here's the thing, Mr. Crane, I have nothing left. No reputation to protect. No company. No marriage. And that makes me very, very dangerous. He fell silent. I ended the call. That night, Logan and I sat on Claire's porch, the flash drive in his pocket. A backup of the folder buried in the planter box behind us. Paranoid, maybe. But when the person you trusted most lies to you, paranoia starts to feel like survival. I didn't know he was capable of all this, Logan said quietly. My mom used to say he was complicated. I thought she meant sad, not corrupt. He was both, I said. Maybe more. We stared at the stars, cold and steady above us. We're not done, I said. There's one thing left. Logan frowned. What? The flash drive. It was small, black, unmarked, like it had nothing to say unless you asked the right way. We didn't open it that night, or the next morning. It took me 2 days, 2 days of preparing for whatever truth was left, 2 days of rehearsing my reaction like that would make betrayal sting any less. Logan sat beside me on the couch. Claire brought tea again. No one spoke as I plugged it in. One folder, for Evelyn. Inside, one video file, dated 10 days before Calvin's death. My finger hovered, then clicked, the screen went black, then flickered to life. Calvin. Not the man from wedding photos, not the one I ate dinner with. This Calvin looked hollow, exhausted, shirt rumpled, eyes dim. He leaned in. Evelyn, he said, if you're seeing this, I didn't make it, or maybe I ran out of time. He sighed, rubbed his face. There's no easy way to say this. You were never the one I needed to hide things from. You were the one I wanted to protect. But I waited too long. And now it's all closing in. He paused. There's someone you need to watch. Someone you trust more than you should. My heart slowed. It's Rachel. The room went still. She wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't that simple. She planned everything. The pregnancy wasn't an accident. The night I told her I couldn't do this anymore, she changed. Said if I left her, she'd go public. About the money, the accounts, everything I buried to keep you safe. He leaned closer. I think she killed Isabel. My mouth went dry. I can't prove it. But the timing. Isabel had just packed her bags. Said she was flying to Lisbon. Then the crash. No witnesses. Brakes failed, they said. but the car had been serviced the day before. He looked into the camera. Rachel knew she was pregnant. Isabel didn't. That changed everything. Claire covered her mouth. Logan's fists clenched. I tried to fix it, Calvin said. Moved the money. Made backups. If anything happened, you'd have the power. He looked away, then back. I was weak, but you're not. If you want to walk away, do it. Take what's yours. Leave them behind. But if you choose to fight, don't do it alone. The screen froze, then cut to black. I sat there still. He knew what Rachel was, what she might do, and still he tried to shape the story, out of guilt or fear. But now, he'd handed me the truth, and I had to decide what to do with it. Rachel didn't know I'd seen the video. Not when I invited her to brunch. Not when I hugged her at the door and told her I missed her. She smiled like she'd won. She wore a pale blue dress, hands gently resting on her belly. He kicks when I drink orange juice, she said with a laugh. I smiled, too, but not with my eyes. We sat on Claire's porch. Logan stayed inside. Claire left us sweet tea and space. I'm glad you reached out, Rachel said, folding her hands in her lap. I was afraid you were angry. Why would I be angry? I asked softly. Because my husband was sleeping with my sister, or because he left you part of the inheritance. She blinked a crack. She shifted. Vivian, this is hard for both of us. Calvin was confused, torn, but he loved you. No, I said. He pitied me. Rachel flinched, and he feared you. Her face went still. I placed the flash drive between us. Her lips parted. I know about the money, the manipulation, the lies. I know he planned to leave you. And I know about Isabel. She didn't move. You can't prove anything, she whispered. You're right, I said. I don't have to. I stood, because I'm not going to court. I'm not pressing charges. I'm not hoping the justice system gets this right. I met her gaze. I'm going to walk away and leave you with everything you thought you wanted: the money, the baby, the lies. She stood too. You think that scares me? No, I said. But it will. Then I turned, walked inside. Logan was waiting. Later, I met Marcus again, handed him the flash drive, a signed affidavit, and one instruction: if anything happens to me, send it to the press, all of it. Then, I went home. The house Calvin and I once shared. It was quiet now. I walked through every room, touching the door frames, the chairs, the floorboard crack we never fixed. I packed one suitcase, left the rest. When I reached the garage, I locked the door behind me, not because I had something to hide, but because I wasn't coming back. 1 week later, I boarded a flight to Colorado. Fresh air, a new lease, a small cottage by the mountains. No secrets, no safeties, no pretending, just me, Evelyn Shaw, survivor, not the woman who was lied to, the woman who turned silence into strength.